Hello and welcome to day 4 of Roots, where we will be diving deeper into Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and the 8 limbs of yoga. So earlier this week, we looked at some of the first sutras in book 1, or the Samadhipada. This translates as the book of contemplation. This is where we found the definition of yoga, and this book explains the importance of yoga and how through commitment and practice, one may attain a state of peace and tranquility. Moving into the second book, or the Sadhanapada, we find the practices we can use to facilitate our self-realization. These practices are known as the Eightfold Path, also the 8 limbs of yoga, and they address many sides of ourselves, including physical, physiological, moral, intellectual aspects that may be keeping us from seeing ourselves and the world clearly. The goal of following the Eightfold Path is to attain spiritual enlightenment. The Sadhanapada describes all the things that distort our perception of reality and disturb our peace of mind and well-being. While Patanjali's Yoga Sutras are often referenced as one of the primary texts that outlines our modern yoga today, it doesn't necessarily address physical postures. It mentions them as one of the 8 limbs, but does not go into detail around how or what postures to perform outside of using the physical practice as a means to prepare for meditation and remain comfortable during long bouts of sitting. The third book, or pada, is the Vibhuti Pada, which translates basically as power and manifestation. The 8 limbs kind of continue into this third book, but it's really about how to access a certain power that we have within ourselves to manifest the best, the highest quality state and being that we can. And the final book, the Kaivalya Pada, is the book of freedom. It describes the process of liberation, of spiritual enlightenment, and achieving the blissful state of samadhi, which is the goal of practicing yoga. Now, the 8 limbs of yoga outlined in the Yoga Sutras go from more outward focus to an inward focus. And they don't necessarily happen in succession. Just like you can think of the limbs or the branches of a tree, they can be happening simultaneously. And we may focus on one more than another at different times during our practice, over the course of our practice. But we don't necessarily have to go through these in a sequential order. We can use them simultaneously to assist in our practice and in our life in general. So the 8 limbs are as follows. We have yamas first, and the yamas are really the behavior that we have toward the world outside of us. Next are the niyamas, and this is more about how we relate to ourselves. Third is asana, which are the physical postures. Fourth is pranayama, which are breathing practices. Fifth is pratyahara, which involves withdrawal of the senses. Sixth is dharana, which is single-pointed focus. And this could also be a technique we use for meditation. 7th is dhyana, which is meditation. And the final step, the 8th limb, is samadhi, which is when the mind becomes still and we experience bliss. So these 8 limbs outlined in the Yoga Sutras really serve as a guideline for our yoga practice. Yoga isn't just one of these limbs, it's all of them combined. And like I said, we may have some that we practice more readily and with greater attention at certain times during our journey. But all of these should be developed and considered when we approach our yoga practice.